So, Mel, what was your interest in the service? Obviously, you joined.
Right.
Was it family that was in service before, or where the interest comes
Just
from?
ever since I was a kid. Ever since I was a kid, I always played Army. You know, we had, Brighton was small back then, a lot of vacant lots, and a lot of us kids hung out, and we just, we'd play Army and all that. And then
G.I. Joe?
Yeah. Back then you could get guns and stuff for Christmas and, toy guns, and nobody thought anything about it. And I actually had hunter safety in school, so guns were a big part of our childhood growing up and everything. But I don't know, just something about the military. I always wanted to, be in the Army, or I played Army and everything. So then when I became of age, I had went up to Howell to buy a 30-30 rifle, Marlin 30-30. Right. And on the way home, I could either go straight to the expressway, or I could turn on Grand River and go back that way. And I thought, well, I'll just go straight and take the expressway back. But when I did that, the Army recruiter is right there on the next block.
Oh, there you go.
So here I got this gun that I just bought in the trunk. Went in and said, I'll just go and see what he's got to say. Went in and talked to him, and about 3 weeks later, just of talking to him over those 3 weeks, I had signed up. And to this day, I still haven't shot that gun.
Well,
40, 50 years later.
It's a souvenir.
It's a souvenir, and I still haven't shot that gun. But anyway, what I wanted to be was a paratrooper, but I also wanted to go overseas. So I said, I want to go to England. I want to be a paratrooper. And he said, well, you can't do that because we don't offer it there. You'd have to go to Italy. I said, nothing in Italy interests me there. So he said that, I said, well, what about Germany? He said, well, you'd have to be in tank, because I want to be the tip of the spear. I wasn't going to be nothing wrong with it. I didn't want to be a clerk or truck driver or anything like that. If I was going in, I was going to be somewhere shooting a gun.
Right.
That was just my mentality. So he set me up and he says, well, how's tanks? You want to be in tanks? I said, that sounds better than walking with 30 or 70 pound pack or whatever. And,
yeah.
So I said, okay, I'll go in tanks. And I didn't know anything where I was going or whatever, so they'd set that all up. And it was just the luck of the draw that I ended up in the unit I did, which is a pretty prestigious unit, so I'm pretty proud of that. And what that was is the 11th Armored Cavalry Regiment. So that's where, a lot of times if you see me, I wear the Stetson, I've got all the terminology or everything to do with the cavalry, because I served in that. So then anyway, got over there, and the 11th Cav, what we did was we guarded the Iron Curtain, is the border between East and West Germany at the time. Okay. So that was our mission, was to guard that. And ourselves and the sister unit in Korea were the only two units in the U.S. Army at the time, and I don't know since, that had full combat load, meaning that we had full ammunition, live ammunition on our tanks and Jeeps, wherever we were at all times when we were on the border. And the tanks were uploaded all the time, because it takes too long to upload them if you know. Right. So they were uploaded all the time. The Jeeps and everything else, you could draw those out of the ammunition when you had to. But what we did is on the border, of course, it was the Iron Curtain, the border. That was set up to keep them in. It was never set up to keep the West out. So everything that was set up was in, I'll go over the border was like right here. And all that was a series of stones set in the gravel or the grass, and you had to be able to see those and find them. If you didn't, you were actually on their property. But 50 meters back from that stone was the actual fence. And then the fence was a little bit of razor wire on the top, and it was very sharp, so if you put your fingers on it, tried to climb it, it would dig in or cut your fingers. They made it that way by design so nobody could climb over. Right. Again, that wasn't to keep us out, it was to keep their people in. And then on the post, every post, they had mines facing them. They weren't facing us. Oh. So they had a mine at the bottom on one post, the next post would be at the center, the next post would be at the top, and then go down, center, bottom, center, top, and all the way down. And those mines are so sensitive that a bird would land on it and set them off. Wow. Of course, every time that happened, we get called out, their guys would get called out, we're standing there looking at each other, what happened. So all kinds of paperwork and filling stuff out.
Dangerous.
It's the border, they wanted to keep everybody in.
Right.
So then on top of that was the concertina wire. From the fence that was there, another 25 meters from that to the road bed was a minefield that they had in there. And then they had a vehicular track that the vehicles would drive on, and they'd take their patrols up and down that. And then on the other side of that, they had an anti-vehicular ditch. So if you were driving a Jeep or anything trying to get there, you go into that ditch, you wouldn't be able to get out. On the other side of that was a dog run. And then on the other side of that, where on the dog run would be German Shepherds or whatever, tied up and to be on a run that they could go back and forth. And their personnel would walk up and down the vehicle track with dogs too, on leashes. But then on the other side of the dog run would be a sandy area that was raked so they could see footprints and stuff in it. And then everything from the border back, and this still wasn't in all the areas, but a good portion of the areas, from the border 1 kilometer back was just clear cut. And then they wouldn't allow the farmers in there, or if they did, they were highly supervised. But that way, if it was clear cut, they could see things coming from a long way away.
Right.
And on all their towers are within sight of each other, so one tower could see the next tower. They had powerful searchlights on top, 2 to 3 East Germans in each tower. Then our towers, we only had like 3 of them for our sector, and our tower was an OP Alpha, and that is since now been turned into a museum. And I got a picture of myself is in that museum, so I'm pretty proud of that.
And what year was this taking place?
For me, I was there. The border that all started in '61 and went to '91 or whatever.
Okay.
But for me, I was there from '75 to '79.
Okay.
So then,
So that was 4 years that you served there in that position. What happened after that position? Did you go to a different one, or?
oh no, I just came to the States. Did 6 months here in the States, and then rotated out.
Okay.
And then the fire department and everything else. So
Right.
that was 90% of my time was on the border there.
Okay. So what are the stories that you'd like to share that not too many people have heard about?
Well, in training and everything else, one of them was in terms of if your tank was ever shot out from under you, we call it dismount. So if you ever had to dismount, you better learn how to fight like an infantryman. And we weren't infantrymen; we were tankers. So what they did is they had sent me to Berlin for 2 weeks to learn how to fight in the city. And it was a regular course and everything else. They had a mock city set up, made out of concrete, rubble, and they taught us infantry tactics on how to fight in the city. So it's about almost to the conclusion of the whole 2 weeks or whatever. We've been doing this for morning, noon, and night. They wear you out, little sleep and everything else. Taught us how to rappel off of buildings. Just trained us for 2 weeks on fighting in the city. Well, we were in this old factory, me and another guy, and we're going through the rubble. We're looking out the window, and there's a bunch of rubble up there. And we found 2 CS grenades that were there. And that's highly unusual, I should say, that they would have been there, because everything is accounted for. If you're issued something, then if you don't use it, you got to turn it in, and it's accounted for. And a CS grenade is the tear gas grenade, is what that is.
Okay.
So it's not a fragmentation or anything like that, and you can
Right.
tell it because it's got a yellow stripe around it, and it looks like the baseball, the new grenades like that. So anyway, I found those 2, and I put them in my field pants. And I said, these will come in handy later, because where we were training, we had to carry our gas mask with us. And the op force, which is there's blue and red, you've always heard those names in the training games or whatever. Mm-hmm. Well, the home team, if you want to use baseball analogy, they didn't have to carry all that stuff with them. And of course, we're playing on their turf, so it's their game. They're supposed to win all the time, push us back. Well, the last where I could use these CS grenades was the last night of our training. The idea was the city was here, we're in a field here, the factories around us, and we're supposed to come in through the factories, push them out through the city, and then you put people in each building as you secure it so it stays secured, and then they were going to push back, and then it teaches us how to retreat from a building and coming back. So my thought is okay, we do this in echelons, and an echelon is just one wave after another, first wave, second wave. So I figured we were going to be in the first wave or first echelon. I'd go in, and then as we were leaving, and as they're pushing us back, my idea was I'd pop this CS grenade, drop it,
Surprise!
and they're going to walk into it.
Yeah.
Well, to my dismay, we were in the third echelon, so it meant that everybody's going through the town. We're laying out there in the weeds watching all this going on. I'm going, damn, I'm not going to get to do this. So finally, they pushed all the way to the end of town. We're in, and there's this dry creek bed with a bridge over it. So we get in, we lay down the creek bed, and thinking, okay, this is the way we're not going to get to do it. But looking all the way down through town, I could see the APCs, and I could see all these people running for it. And I told this guy, I said, they're going to do an end around. They're going to load up, and they're going to come around, and they're going to attack us from the back. I said, you watch. Well, of course, you could see the lights going around. It's like, I don't know, 20-acre, 30-acre
I was going to say it was a radius.
It's a big radius. And a lot of people didn't know what was going on, but they're doing an end around. They're going to come in behind us. So we just went from this bank to this bank, and sure enough, they come in. They were cockier than hell. So it was funny how they, just one guy shooting blanks, everything was blanks, but he had an M60. He's just firing shit up, walking around the rubble. Well, the guy next to me, he was our armorer. He played baseball as a pitcher on University of Arizona.
Okay.
So I could throw a grenade, but I could throw it from here to my truck. He could throw it to the outfield.
Wow.
So I says, can you hit that guy and throw it at his feet? And he did that. Of course, it popped, and it takes a few minutes for it to disperse and everything else. Then all of a sudden, that guy dropped that M60 and started cussing. We yelled, mask, 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 or gas, 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 I'm sorry. Gas, gas, gas. So we all mask up, so nothing's going to hurt us.
Right.
So anyway, they just dropped it right there. Everybody's on their end is crying and whining and everything else because this ain't the way that's supposed to go. They're supposed to be the ones that win. This is their home turf. So they stop everything right there. So now we're out there for hours because they got to do investigations and everything.
Wow.
So then we go back that night, we're turning in all of our gear, and everybody's always dirty and sweaty, but these guys had tears running down, so you could see it just running down in the sweat and the dirt.
Right.
And they were cussing us out and everything else. You guys don't play fair? When's the war fair?
Yeah.
When is this supposed to be fair? Tell me that.
Right.
So I just thought it was funnier than hell, but then I was still worried because we still had one grenade with us that I didn't use. So now we're thinking, okay, now they're going to come for us, try and figure this all out.
Right.
And the next day we go there, and they had roped off that area where the grenade landed. Well, the grenade doesn't go anywhere; it just burns. It burns really hot, so it burns all the stuff out of it. Mm-hmm. You could see where it was just sitting there. So I'm sitting there looking at it because we're walking around. The big guys, big wigs over here in the jeeps, the colonels and everything else, trying to figure out what was going on. Our colonel was mad, but he was happy. The cav had shown these other guys how to do shit. But anyway, that grenade was laying right there, all burnt off and everything else. But next to it was an old glass bottle laying there. So they couldn't fan them. We were never issued any of these grenades. Where did they come from? What was causing this? Their theory was that the engineers had made them out of CS capsules in glass bottles. So they were looking at this glass bottle,
right.
And the grenade was sitting right there in front of them. They never put the two together or anything else. So then later on, in my way of disposing of that last grenade is when we got back, I just threw it in the dumpster. Probably not the smartest thing to do, but I didn't want to have that anywhere near us.
Right.
So threw that second grenade in the dumpster, and that's where that ended. But yeah, nothing was ever said, and like I say, our guys, our colonels and the upper echelon they were happy with us, but they couldn't say it out loud because we'd come through, we'd kick their ass. They were, supposed to be the big boys, and they weren't happy at all.
Interesting. Let's pause to pay our sponsor time. So we will be back with Mel Sanch and Untold Veteran Stories. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mark Shea, and this is Body by Mark. Here we do a complete line of repairs, collision repairs, anything at all that happens in an accident, we can fix it. We also do restoration repairs, and there's not a lot of shops around here that do it. We're working on a 2009 Jeep Wrangler. It's a TJ, and we are replacing a frame rail, which is very common on these. If you need an estimate, I'll even come to your house and do it for you.
Okay, so what other stories that not too many people know about, Mel, would you like to share with us?
Well, being young, being out in the field, being in the tanks and everything else, we were always in the field. So I never got to see a lot of Europe like a tourist or anything.
Mm-hmm.
I was in Germany and I had experiences downtown, but a lot of my stuff was out in the field, playing Army, playing war games and everything else. But a couple things that we used to do all the time is the Germans over there, their kids, they can drink pretty much at any age. You know, there's no, got to be 18 or anything like that.
Really?
So we were in the field, and if you see the German kids, like any kids, they see the Army, they see the tanks or whatever, they want to come up. And we'd give them money, Deutschmarks, to go out to their dads or into town or whatever and bring us some beer back. And not once did we ever get burnt. Those little kids
Really?
brought back change, they brought back the beer. And,
A couple beers missing, or?
no, never, not
No?
once. No, those they
How
were
about that?
great. What one time, a couple of these stories here, and it's all involving beer and being in the field. And of course, you know, you're not supposed to be drinking, but we're young and that's what we do.
Right.
One time we sent some kids in, and the tanks were all lined up on the side of the road, and we were waiting in between orders. You know, they just decided, okay, we got to figure out what we just did. So we sent these kids into town. They came back, and they were so proud of what they did. They laid their bikes down and then laid all the beer out on the hill. Well, I'm in my tank, and the lieutenant's in the next tank looking back, and he's going, Sergeant Sanch, you don't take any of that beer or anything else. You leave it alone. I'm going, yeah, okay, yeah.
Sure.
So then we get the order to move out. So everybody starts up, the diesels start up and everything else. He starts moving out, so he's worried about that right now. We're worried about the beer. So the kids, you know, put them all in bags and everything else, and we finally get it on board. So we're happy there, but we just could not believe that they laid it all out for this lieutenant to see. And another time that we were out in the wood lines, you know, we're never anywhere close to town. Mm-hmm. And the towns in Germany are just like the little picturesque. You see a little town over here, you know, 2 clicks away, another little town over here, and then the woods. And, we're way back in the woods and everything, and my driver decides that he's going to run down to town and get us some beer. And they always said that in the Cav, you never anywhere for over 2 hours. We never ever stayed in one spot for 2 hours. You're always on the move. Even they'd say, okay, you're going to be here for at least 24 hours. We're going to stand down and everything else. It was a lie that we were never anywhere for over 2 hours. So anyway, this is one of those times. This is, you know, we're not doing anything for 8 hours. Get some rest. We're staying here. So we look on our map and we see a little town down there. So he's going to go down and get us some beer. So he's gone. All of a sudden the order comes up, and we're the lead tank. So everybody's following us. I'm the map reader for the battalion.
Okay.
So then he says, okay, you know, we got to move out. So start the tanks up. And of course, you can hear these things miles away. I tell the driver, I said, gun that, you know, just keep gunning, like that, because our guy ain't back yet. So then they say, okay, head out. You got to move out. Shit, this guy ain't back yet, and we got to lead out. So we're going down the corner rows, the woods on this side, fields on this side, and going down the road. Trail in the woods or whatever.
In the opposite direction of
No,
where he's at,
we're
or?
kind of going towards him, so that was a
Okay.
good thing.
Yeah.
So to go where we needed to go, there was a road that went off to the right because we had to go down this way. I passed that road on purpose because I needed to get my guy back. So they're yelling at me, "You missed the road," and I said, "No, I'm going to take the next one because we'll split up and 3 of us go this way. There's 5 tanks in platoon. You 2 go that way. You take that road. We're not all on the same road." Well, we got down that a little way, and then here he was. He had his shirt unbuttoned down here. He had 2 bags of beer, sweating his ass off, trying to run up to us because he heard everything that was going on. He started running from that point. Once he got on the tank, we slowed down. He jumped on. We threw the beer, and that's the most important thing.
There
He
you go.
got in there.
Got your beers.
Got it in there. And then from there, when you can see the tank as it moved, if you get the gas, the front end comes up a little bit, and we were heading out. So that was a close call because we could have all been court-martialed for that one.
Yeah, that would have been interesting to battle that one. You'd have a new battle on your hands. So what other things were you involved in? Yeah, after you were done with your service, what happened when you?
Well, I came back and resumed the
down?
fire department. You know,
Okay.
so started from there. Ended up working in the lumber yard at Fingley Lumber Company for 18 years. And simultaneously, a lot of stuff I've done in my life overlapped, so I never did more than one job. So while I was at the lumber yard doing the fire department, I also started my own business.
That was pine lumber at the time, wasn't it?
No, Ann Arbor. So
It was
Fingley Lumber Company was in Ann Arbor.
Oh, Ann Arbor. Okay.
Yeah. So like I said, I worked there for 18 years. And then towards the end of it, the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s, I'd started my own landscape company. So I did that part-time until I built it up big enough to where I could leave the lumber yard, which I did in 97. And then I worked that for 10 years until the economy really went bad. That recession we had in 07, 08, that depression, it was bad. When they quit building houses or selling houses, there was nothing to do. So anybody in the trades was hurting.
Right. So did you sell your business off, or?
No, I lost everything.
You lost everything?
I lost everything. The house, the business, the whole shop.
Really?
So, yeah.
Wow.
So basically start from square one. And it was tough. It was a tough time.
Oh, yeah.
But what are you going to do? Either pull your britches
fight.
up and start over, or
Right. Or give in, and you're too young at that time.
I thought about giving in, but that's not the way to go.
Right.
I had a lot of our friends did give in, so it wasn't uncommon. But I just started over, and you just got to do what you got to do.
Right.
And I'm in a great place. I got a beautiful wife, my boys and her kids. They're just beautiful spot. Everything's life is good.
Life is good. Very good.
You just got to wait and get through the hard times. The good times are there.
Yeah, you always got hard times to go through, but when you get through those, you get your benefits that you long deserve.
It's what you make of it. Everybody's going to have hard times. It's not unique to any one person. It's just what you make of it and how you deal with it.
Right.
It could be health issues. It could be family members being killed unexpectedly. All kinds of stuff. Any bad things happen to everybody.
Right.
It's just how you choose to deal with them.
No way to avoid them.
Right.
So, well, thanks for your service, Mel, and the time that you spent here today. Those of you who are watching, make sure you like and share, and most of all, subscribe. Hit that subscribe button so you'll be tuned in to all our shows that we have from the best of Brighton and Livingston County. Also, be aware that we are having a community picnic on Main Street July 9th, and that will run from 11 o'clock to 8 o'clock. We'll have food trucks on one side of the street and vendors and booths selling items from clothing to candles, soap, all kinds of goodies. So make sure you put that date on your calendar. Again, that's July 9th, and we'll see you there. Thanks again for watching. God bless.